guys, welcome to
the brand new podcast, Young and in Love.
Young and in Love.
This is the podcast, Young and in Love. Hello, young lovers, and welcome to another episode of Young and in Love. Young and in Love. Again, I'm Josh.
And I'm Taylor.
We're the Andersons. And this is Young and in Love. Young and in Love. Young and in Love.
Young and in Love.
This is Young and in Love. We're going to take a quick moment and highlight one of our sponsors, Anchor.
So if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let us explain.
It's free. All you need to do is download their app or visit their website, which is anchor.fm.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
They will literally take care of all of the distribution services, so all you have to do on the day of is hit publish. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone using the app or computer if you'd much rather just use the website.
You can even make money from your podcast without even having one listener.
Yeah, without a single listener, they'll find sponsors that are willing to give you a chance and give you a shot at making money.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
So all we ask is that if you have a story to tell or a message to share, that you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Three, two, one, recording. Okay. It's a podcast episode. We are your hosts, Josh and Tay, of the Young and in Love podcast.
You sound so tired.
We are coming to you postpartum, which there was a non-existent build-up in podcast episodes, and that was mainly because priorities were due, and unfortunately the podcast did not make the cut. So episodes went unedited. They did not go unrecorded, but definitely went unedited, and here we are, postpartum, now a family of 3.
4.
The dog. It's a pet. Part of the family. I am full-fledged dog person, so don't hate. I do love our doggy. I just don't always count him as the family. I count people's first and doggies second. So today we will be talking about exactly that, which is partum. I don't know if you can actually use that word alone, but
Here it is.
Natal.
I think it's postnatal.
Of our child. Oh, you are postpartum. He's postnatal.
I don't know.
I mean, natal is birth.
Right.
But
I guess so. All of this.
anyways, yeah. We have our third member of the podcast here with us. So if you hear some oohs and ahs and goo-goos and gagas in the background, as well as some coos, because that's what he loves to do. That's just August making his first appearance on the podcast. So we talked. Wow. Okay. We're just going to basically start over. I guess we could introduce ourselves. So I'm Josh Anderson. I am an architectural intern, and I work here in Jacksonville, Florida, for a company called Lanterman Brown. And Taylor is my wife.
Yes, I'm Taylor. I'm Josh's wife.
As loud as you can.
I am a student still. I am almost done. I'm in school for early childhood education, and I will be doing my student teaching in the fall, and then probably graduate in the spring, and eventually teach some grade between K to 5. But I'm a mom now, so I'm really happy about that, and I'll stay home probably until all of our kids are in school, and then I'll go teach.
Yeah, we met in Cincinnati at the University of Cincinnati when we were both students there. If you really want to know a lot about our history, feel free to start at episode 1. But to keep it brief, and we have a lot of content to go through, today we will be talking about the birth of our first child. His name is August Fox Anderson. He was born on May 13th at a wee hour in the morning. But it was a life-changing experience for obvious reasons, since before we didn't have a kid.
Yeah.
And now we have a kid, which is exciting and fun.
He's so cute.
He's so cute. If you want to stay up to date on what he's looking like, you can always follow Tay at Tay's Best Days on Instagram. That's where you can see all the updates that she gives, as well as updates on her postpartum journey as she returns to fitness here in a couple weeks. That will be exciting to watch, especially inspiring for anyone who may be needing extra motivation. And then also you get to see cute pictures of August and our life. I'm also on Instagram at Whimsical Joshua, but it's not as frequent of posts. So if you really want to stay up to date, you follow Tay. Tay's got a schedule for us here written out as to things that happened. So I guess just give an overall impressions of the whole birth experience first, and then we can break it down into detail. Oh, right. Hold on.
And you can chime in too, because I don't know. I just wrote down brief things, so your memory will be helpful, because your memory is better than mine, especially one that's not very drugged.
You're good. Go for it.
Okay, so on last Tuesday, the 12th, we went into the hospital at 6 o'clock in the morning.
No, general overview first.
What are you talking about?
As in, like, your impressions. Like, how was the birth experience? Before details. Just, like, how you're feeling afterwards and what it was like to go through the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
No one needs a full time frame yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so overall, I guess before going into the hospital,
Yeah.
like, I was super excited, super, like, nervous, but also, like, equally calm, just because I didn't really know what to expect. During the labor, I was pretty calm up until certain points. And then I was doubting myself and sort of thought I was going to die at some points. And then he was born eventually, and I was sort of in shock. And then he got taken away, and then I got really sad. Sorry, it's still emotional. But then I came back, and now I'm happy.
Cool. So yeah, let's start from the beginning. So you were 39 weeks, 5 days when you were admitted to the hospital. Yeah. Simply because we had 2 different due dates. One that was the original due date, and then one due date that he was measuring at. And that's difference is the 14th of May versus the 10th of May. So 14th of May, original due date, 10th of May was the date that he was measuring at. So he was a little bit he was quick off the blocks to grow.
Yeah. It was confusing to keep track the entire pregnancy, because about half of our doctors went with one due date and half went with the other. So each time I had an appointment, they'd be like, okay, so you're due on the 10th. And then I'd come back the next week and they're like, all right, so you're on the 14th. And I'm like, whatever.
Whatever
Sure.
you say. So Tay was done with her pregnancy. She didn't want to do it anymore. And she was at full term. So the doctors agreed that it would be a good idea to just induce, set a date for induction. And that date was Tuesday, May 12th. And that's when we showed up at the hospital at 6 a.m. Go ahead.
Yep. So when I got to the hospital, I was still at like 3 centimeters dilated and 70% effaced. As soon as we got there, they basically hooked me up to an IV and a saline drip right away. And we just sort of chilled. I got into my gown. We didn't really know what to do since no one really came in to talk to us. But then around like 7 a.m., the doctor who was going to deliver my baby came in at 7. And she was just sort of going over the different options of how we could start this induction. So she basically said that she could start me off on a low dosage of Pitocin, and they would increase that gradually every few hours. Or she could just go ahead and break my water immediately and see how my body progressed from there. But when she explained it to me, she said that she preferred to do Pitocin. She said she saw the best results that way, and I didn't really do my research on this part. So I just said, okay, like I'll go with your recommendation. So they hooked me up to Pitocin, and they increased the amount every half hour. And around 9:30 in the morning, so a couple hours later, they came back in. They checked my cervix for progress, and I was still around a 3. I got a little bit more thinned out, so they upped the dosage even more. And I just slowly progressed, but once I got to around like a 4, maybe like around like 10 or so, the doctor came back in, and she just said, okay, like we're gonna break your water. So she did, and that felt really, really weird. It basically feels like you're peeing uncontrollably, and you can't do anything to stop it, and you just feel so uncomfortable because you're like, this should not be happening. Like, this is sort of, I was almost like embarrassed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm peeing so much. But it was just a bunch of fluid just pouring out of me. So she did that at 11:30. And around that time, Josh was going to leave to go get lunch and grab my birth ball from the car. So he left pretty much as soon as she was done. So like 11:40 maybe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then probably not even 5 minutes after he was gone, the contractions started. They weren't bad at first. They were just really bad period cramps. I was watching a movie on Amazon Prime. So I was just trying to distract myself and breathe through them. I'm not even sure how long Josh was gone because the contractions picked up a lot. I got to the point where I really had to just focus and breathe and sort of just stop whatever I was doing whenever I had one. And they were about 30 seconds long and probably like 4 to 5 minutes apart while he was gone. And then he came back, and pretty much as soon as he came back, I needed his help, like immediately. So he would have to press with all of his weight into the center, or I don't know.
Middle lower.
Yeah, the middle lower of my back, literally with like his full force, right? That was the only way I could get through a contraction. So I would be fine, when I didn't have one. And then immediately it would start to build, and he would just have to take a break from eating and come over and help me. So I stayed like that probably until like 1 o'clock. The nurse explained to me when they broke my water that they normally recommend people to get an epidural before they break my water. But I didn't know when that was going to happen, so I didn't ask for it. But at this point, I was about done with the pain. It was really intense. I couldn't relax. And I was starting to get really tired. So I asked for an epidural after contracting for like 2 hours. and she told me it would be about another 1 hour wait. So Josh and I did our thing for another like 45 minutes, and then the anesthesiologist came in, and he gave me my epidural around 2 o'clock, and it probably kicked in within like 10 minutes or so. And it felt really, really good. And so when they checked me after that, I was at a 5 and 80% effaced. And I fell asleep to nap probably around 2:45, and I slept for about an hour. After I woke up around like 3, well, just kidding, hold on. Before I fell asleep, they gave me a peanut ball to help my body sort of dilate and get thinned out a little bit more while I slept. And they would come in and turn me every like half hour or so. And so I slept for an hour, and then after I woke up and sort of chilled for a bit, I could feel the anesthetic wearing off. So I could start like wiggling my toes, moving my feet, moving my legs. It got to a point where I felt like I could stand up and walk, which I didn't think was right at all with an epidural. So I was able to feel those contractions too. And at first, as it was wearing off, it wasn't terrible. I could feel them and I could notice them. But then it got to the point where they were crampy and like it was really uncomfortable. And then it turned into pain so much to the point where I was like, had a death grip on the bed handles, breathing like really hard through the contractions. And I let my nurse know what was going on. She basically just told me it's normal to have pressure. But I wasn't having pressure, I was having pain and could feel everything. So she let what was her name? The nurse,
She was just part of the anesthesiology team.
Okay.
So a nurse that assisted, or a licensed nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
Who assisted the anesthesiologist.
Okay, yeah. So she came in and asked me what was going on, and this is about 7 o'clock. So again, this is like another 2 hours of me contracting before she came in to help me. So she asked what was happening, and she upped the dosage in my IV, and like I had the little call button or button to increase the dosage amount whenever I wanted. So she did that, and whenever I felt a contraction, I would press the up the dosage because I could still feel everything even after she upped the dosage in the IV. And I still didn't feel any change at all. The pain still remained the same. It only got worse from there. So then about like 7 to 9:30 was just full of me contracting, with contractions lasting about a minute, and about like how far apart do you think they were? Like every minute, every 30 seconds?
They were 30 seconds long, probably 2 minutes apart.
Yeah. So, it was terrible. So, I was at this point, I was so tired. And they got to so bad where I was like, I don't know, moaning, screaming.
Yeah, moaning is probably the best one. It was more of like just a grunt, because you were just sort of trying to grit through the pain.
Yeah.
So, grabbing onto the edge of the bed, sort of yanking at the armrests on the bed or the fall guards on a hospital bed, and just sort of hanging on for dear life as you went through each contraction.
Yeah. So that was like 5 after the epidural, after the nurse came in, to 9:30, where I was really just doubting whether or not I was going to make it through. And it got so bad to the point where I was like crying through all of them.
Yeah.
And I did. I blacked out probably the last hour of contractions just because my body was so tired that when the anesthesia team nurse came in again to check on me and told the anesthesiologist that he needed to come and replace my epidural, I was like falling asleep in the middle of contractions.
Yeah.
And so he came in to redo it, and I remember like crying and like as he was sticking me, like falling asleep.
Yeah.
and then it kicked in probably like 15 minutes later. So it's like 10 o'clock now. And I rested. I think I took a nap until about like 12:15 in the morning or so. The night nurse came in, who was like the nicest lady ever. Probably like one of my favorite like people, probably just because of the experience.
Yeah.
But she was like, okay, like let me know if you have any pressure and I can come in to check you. So before they replaced my epidural, remember I was at like a 5 and 80% effaced. And I probably called our nurse around 12:30 and I was like, hey, like I think I have some pressure. I don't know if you want to come in, but like that's what I'm feeling. So she comes in and she's like, oh, like you're out of 10, like it's time to have a baby. So I was like, oh my gosh, like okay, like we're gonna have a baby. So we start pushing at like 12:30, and that was going really well. The doctor came in probably around like 12:45 or so, and then August was born at 1:03.
Yeah. The whole epidural mess was just sort of an unfortunate circumstance because there just happened to be a C-section right about the same time that Tay's first epidural was wearing off and becoming, or sort of malfunctioning. Epidurals don't wear off. They're not supposed to. So, because it's just a slow drip of anesthesia that goes into your body. For some odd reason, hers just didn't take the first time. The anesthesiologist explained to us that it happens probably 1 in 1,000 people where it's effective and then it's just no longer effective. So it took him so long to get into our room to replace it because he was in the middle of a C-section. It was just unfortunate timing. And nothing you can really blame anyone for. But Tay got through like a champ.
Yeah.
Sort of just muscled it up and gritted her teeth and made it through. So that was a really cool experience. Just to see her be strong and sacrifice for the kiddo. And then he was born with a healthy heart rate, but unfortunately his natural instinct to breathe didn't kick in when he came out. So it was an odd scene, I think, because you have so many expectations based on other people's experiences, as well as the way that movies portray these scenes where the baby comes out and he's real messy, but he gets to go on the mom's chest and then everybody's so happy and the nurses are wiping him off. And August came out with what's called a zero tone in his muscles, which basically means he's flopping around like he has no muscles and no bone structure. And he wasn't breathing. So they placed him on Taylor's chest for probably 20 seconds while we cut the cord and sort of clamped everything up. But then he was immediately placed on the baby warmer, and NICU nurses were called, as well as some respiratory therapists. And in like a matter of 2 minutes, the room went from 4 nurses and a doctor to probably 15 nurses and 3 doctors.
Yeah.
I guess probably 2 doctors and a respiratory therapist. I don't know if respiratory therapists are doctors, and if you are a respiratory therapist and you are a doctor, I apologize. It's just ignorance. It's not arrogance or discrimination. But so the good news is that he had a very strong heart. So he came out and his blood was pumping at like 98 beats per minute the whole time. So they weren't very worried about his overall health. It was just helping him getting breathing on his own. That did not happen in the hotel or in the hotel room, in the hospital room. They sort of got him awake and his eyes open, but he wasn't making any sounds. And that was sort of the only thing that Taylor could hold on to. In the moment, she kept asking why or when he was going to cry and if he was going to cry, because that's our expectation again, is that the baby comes out and he cries.
Yeah. I was also in shock. I didn't really know what was happening because I thought, because he never really got placed on my chest. So I never really got to even touch him or look at him. They just sort of swept him away. So I thought maybe he'd be over there for a second and then he'd come right back. But he never came back. So I was just sort of staring over there what are you doing? Why aren't you saying anything? While our doctor was just patiently and quietly stitching me up, which I had no idea she was even doing. And she was listening in, and she would calmly try and get our attention and tell us what was going on and why they were doing what they were doing, which was pretty cool that she was able to do that and stay calm, or try and keep us calm too.
Right. So they were talking a lot of medical phrases and medical lingo, and that we didn't understand much of what was going on. I knew that they had a breathing tube in him and that they were helping him breathe. But yeah, our doctor was very good in the fact that as she was stitching Taylor up and continuing to do her job, she was also listening to everything that the nurses and doctors were saying about him and then relaying it to us in a calm and simplified manner so that we knew what was going on. But she was reassuring us, knowing that everything was going to be okay. And the cool thing is I think it's called a stage 2 NICU at Baptist South, where we delivered August, which means that they can do everything except for artificially keep the baby alive. So it was an excellent team. They were in there in what I thought was record time. I'm sure they practiced that all the time. But they were an excellent team, and they got him breathing right away. His color came in. Everything was go except for the breathing. So, as Taylor mentioned, he was kept in there for probably 20 minutes, but not on her, just on the warming table with doctors breathing for him and trying to get all of his vitals and make sure that he was going to be okay. And then they let her see him one last time in the sort of transportation box, the big plastic box, and then they wheeled him off to the NICU for the night in approximate 2 days. When I had an idea to start a podcast, I had no idea where to start. But I had listened to Candace and Casey's Couples Therapy, and they had mentioned an app called Anchor. And I was really intrigued to see how really simple it could be to make a podcast.
Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means that you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad.
So, if you always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's Anchor, as in ANCHOR.FM/START to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. I can't wait to hear your guys' podcasts. Which was tough. We stayed up until we were able to go see him. Mm-hmm. So they stuck an IV in his hand. He was in a breathing tube with a respirator. think that was it. Everything else was just sort of to maintain his vitals, to make sure
Yeah.
that everything else was okay.
Yeah.
I think the easiest, because we're already at half an hour on episode time. Obviously, it'll be less because of editing, but to sort of wrap up the NICU time, although he spent 2 days in the NICU, he wasn't your typical NICU baby.
Yeah.
So, like, your typical NICU baby either has developmental issues or,
Was born preterm.
born preterm. That's the majority of them. So they're there to, like, finish developing. And they're there to have the extra assistance to, like, continue to grow and to be healthy and, like, wouldn't survive if they weren't in the NICU. August was different because the only issue he had was the fact that he didn't start breathing on his own.
Mm-hmm.
But once they got a breathing tube in him and sort of got the habit down and his lungs pumping in and out and full of air, he was fine.
Yeah.
And he was fine in a way that, like, they had him on a respirator at 2 a.m., but when we went to visit him at 8 a.m., there was no longer a respirator.
Yeah. And everything else I did afterwards was just as like a precautionary measure, just to be like very, very sure that he was A-okay and ready to leave.
Yeah. Biggest concern of theirs was that he was fighting an infection, some type of respiratory infection, and that's why his body didn't start breathing.
Yeah.
That's the most common issue, or the most common problem that causes these types of symptoms. So they had to run a bunch of blood culture tests, and they had him on antibiotics immediately just in case he had any infection. But by like noon on Wednesday, so he was born at 1 a.m., by like noon, which was 12 hours later, he was on like room air.
Yeah.
So the respirator was purely just pumping 21% oxygen into his lungs, and he was just breathing normally. Their concern after the first 24 hours, when they got the first results for the blood cultures back, which was negative for any type of aggressive infection, was that he was feeding properly, because our breathing and our feeding are linked. So most commonly in the NICU, babies who have respiratory issues also have feeding issues. So that's what they started to test for after the first 24 hours. And that's sort of what kept him in the NICU, just to make sure that he was feeding correctly, and then to monitor his vitals to make sure no regressive actions came into play.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's sort of how, basically, how the next few days went. So like emotionally wise, like Wednesday, I was okay. Like I was fine. I think I was still on the high of like, okay, like we just had a baby, like that's really cool. And then like we got to rest, and like I got to go see him every couple of hours. And I just was okay with the circumstances because like I couldn't really change anything about it. But then like Wednesday night and like Thursday, those are the worst days emotionally. Probably because I was pumping after he was born to try and collect any colostrum I could and trying to get my milk supply in. So I was doing that, and we would deliver bottles to the NICU for them to use for him with formula. But I got woken up at Thursday morning at like 2 a.m. With a nurse asking me to pump because he was hungry. And so I said, yeah, okay. And so I got up, grabbed my pump, tried to pump, but literally only 2 drops came out on both sides. So I cried immediately. So I'm like, my baby is hungry. Like, I'm not there, and like I can't do anything like about it. And so I called the nurse back, gave them to her, and apologized. And then I just cried and got out of my hospital bed, crawled over to Josh on his support person bed, and slept with him and cried the rest of the night. And then Thursday, my mom called and asked what was happening, and I just sobbed on the phone. I didn't feel connected to him. I didn't feel like he was my baby. I sort of felt like he was the nurse's baby since they were the ones taking care of him. I didn't really want to go see him, which is all really sad, and I was really scared because you're not supposed to feel that way. But Josh suggested that I needed to go to all of the visiting hours that day. So I did. And I went the first time, and I asked to do as much as I could, and we could finally hold him by then. So I did that. And then I went back for the second one, and they let me breastfeed him. And he latched on and nursed like a champ immediately. And he has continued to do so since then, which I'm very, very grateful for. But that's probably helped me get the most connection back really fast. And after that visitation, I felt like he was actually mine. I felt the connection for him, and I wanted to keep going back to see him. And then Thursday night, was that Thursday night? Thursday night, he was allowed to leave and come back and stay with us in our room, and then we left on Friday.
Yeah, so just a quick pointer about breastfeeding. It's sort of witchcraft because a mother's body has a natural connection with her offspring, and the fact that Taylor was not with August when he was born and then he was quickly separated delayed the onset of her breast milk. Now, obviously, it varies with each individual how quickly it comes in, but being with the newborn definitely helps. That is scientifically proven. Not a matter of fact, or not a matter of opinion. It is a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And how that helps a mother start to settle into that role as a nurturer. So the fact that she was separated not only sort of put strain on her natural ability to create breast milk, but also emotionally. And I just wanted to point that out because it's a moment of education for people who may experience the same thing. And the fact that you will feel inadequate because you're not providing the way that you expected to. You're not providing the way that your body naturally wants to respond with. And that's frustrating. To not be able to meet your expectations. So it was difficult, most definitely. Her emotions were merited. It definitely wasn't an exaggeration. And then we just had to do the best that we could with the situation that we had. So allowing her to go every 3 hours and me just sort of taking the back seat and understanding that that's what she needed emotionally at that moment, and that I would have plenty of time with him afterwards, was just an easy decision for me to make. One that I think anybody would make in that situation. So it was nothing against the nurses. They were simply doing the best that they could. But from a parent's standpoint, it's tough because you expect to be the first one to feed your child, the first one to bathe him, sort of the first, even though it's disgusting, the first one to change his diaper, just to see all those firsts. And unfortunately, we missed those with August. But quickly, we came to the understanding that although we missed some firsts, we didn't miss all of them, right? We'll be the ones to experience his first word, his first steps, his first baseball game, his first A on his report card, all those firsts, first day of school, first time he gets to hang out with his cousins, first time he gets knocked over by the dog. Plenty of firsts still to come. So it's easy to become discouraged, but it's equally as easy to look for the brighter side of the situation. So we kept pushing the nurses to give him a chance to sort of prove himself. So to reduce the dosage of his IV so that he would be more reliant on natural feedings and formula. which they did, not reluctantly, and it wasn't against their medical opinion either. We were just very open with them, and they were open with us, so it was a good team effort. And luckily, at 11:30 on Thursday night, he was able to come and spend the night with us, which was nice, because then the nurse got him and took care of all of his needs that should have been done before, like the first day. So he got his feet stamped and all of his measurements taken again, and his hearing checked and all that stuff. So Friday morning came along, and it was a nightmare, to say the least. About every half an hour, somebody else came in to check on the baby. Luckily, we had probably the most efficient nurse of the entire stay.
Yeah.
Was with us Friday morning. And there were no other significant cases Friday morning either. So she was able to spend a lot of time with us Friday morning, helping us prepare August for departure. What do they call it? Discharge. There we go. Preparing August for discharge. So it was kind of crazy, because like what normally they take 2 days to do, they did in like 4 hours. So he was circumcised, bathed, sort of given all of our supplies to go home with, like newborn diapers and formula that he had been drinking there. They really set us up for success to go home. Just making sure that we understood. Oh, the lactation consultant came in and helped you, because he was really upset that morning for obvious reasons, not being able to nap straight and then not being able to feed on a certain schedule, on the normal schedule that he had been following for the last day and a half. So the lactation consultant helped come in and calm him down and show how to deal with like a fussy baby as they eat, which has come in real handy these last 2 or 3 days. Then we came home, and we're grateful for obviously Taylor's mom, who continued to reach out and to reassure Taylor. My sister also flew in Tuesday afternoon on literally a day's notice, so that she could be here, and she guided us through sort of how to take pictures of newborns, and she was our liaison to the outside world for those 3 days that we were stuck in the hospital, because if we needed something from the apartment, or she brought us dinner and breakfast one day and then some supplies, she was there and willing to jump back and forth. So those were all great blessings that we had. So her assistance was much appreciated, and will forever be in debt, obviously. So then the next couple of days were just typical newborn stuff that we might talk about in later episodes as we recap struggles that we have, or sort of how our transition to new parents, from newlyweds to newly parents. And we'll keep you guys updated on that. Her mother and sister came to visit. And then my sister stayed for a week as well, and they both left today, which is Tuesday the 19th. So we're so thankful for them and all the assistance and help that we got from the nurses and doctors at Baptist Medical Center South Campus. And we'll forever be in debt to them for the service that they've paid and help bring August into the world. We're going to wrap things up with some questions. Again, follow Tay on Instagram at Tay's Best Days. That's TaysBest Days. Tay's Best Days. For all the updates, she asked some people if they had any questions that they'd like to submit. So we're going to finish off probably an hour worth of episode here with some Q&A. You got the questions queued up yet?
I'm trying to find them.
Okay.
I thought hold on. Sorry. Okay, so the first question is, did it go as planned / expected? And that is a definite no. I did not expect, I didn't expect things to be as painful as they were. I didn't expect, no, I'm not going to be able to do this, that's okay. Sorry about that. But no, I just know. Did not expect anything really to happen. That happened. That's basically the answer there.
Go.
Next question is, what postpartum items have you been enjoying / have been helpful in healing? So the things I probably use the most, actually, let's see here. There's a couple of things I would say
You need my help?
you need to have, right?
Yeah.
So I've been using, I have these so for breastfeeding, if you plan on breastfeeding, I have these breast collector shells that they basically, so, okay, if you don't want to hear the word nipple thrown around, or vagina, you should probably exit the podcast now.
The birth story's over.
Yeah.
This is going to get real personal real fast. So if you're a man who's in a relationship with a woman and you plan on having children together, or you just had a child together or are pregnant, you most definitely should listen to this and be prepared to have these conversations with your partner, because it's necessary.
Yeah.
And if you're a woman who's curious about these things, definitely stay on. If you're a man who has no intentions of having a child and doesn't have a partner, you could probably end the episode here and just catch us on the next one.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah. Anyway, so there are these breast milk collector shells. They sit basically cupping your nipple, but they create a barrier between your nipple and your bra or your shirt, so that it's not constantly rubbing against some fabric. And that has helped a ton with their healing after feedings. So the other day I had blisters and a little bit of cracking, and I put these on and I wear them all day, all night. I do wash them in between or else that'd be really gross. And it does collect milk, which you can save, which is fantastic. And you don't even have to work for it. Sorry, I know, it's just so great. But yeah, so that's really necessary. All the stuff they give you at the hospital, Tux pads, Dermaplast, I use those. I use it a lot more in the hospital than I do right now, but I think that varies on if you tore, how you feel. I feel pretty good right now, so I'm not really using the Tux pads or the spray. I really just stick to the Peri bottle to make sure everything's clean, and I call it good. The other thing, the Haakaa for breastfeeding, that has been fantastic just because it collects your letdown on the other boob that you're not feeding your kid on. So you get a bunch of milk saved in this cup, this suction cup that would have otherwise been in your shirt or a pad. But now you get to turn it into a bottle or whatever you want. And then the last thing I say is super helpful in my healing is a belly band corset type thing.
A support band. Yeah,
support band. In the hospital in the last couple of days after coming home, it has helped me just feel like I have core support, so my back isn't hurting so bad. But in the last couple of days, I've actually noticed that all of my abdominal muscles are coming together a lot quickly than I would have ever expected them to, considering I'm almost 1 full week post-baby now, and they're already back in place where they should be.
5 weeks to go.
Yeah. So those are my must-haves there. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Next question is it painful to feed your baby? Short answer, no, it should not be painful. But it's also situational, I guess. So if your baby has a bad latch, it's going to hurt. It shouldn't feel like he's pinching you or they are pinching you. When they first latch on, it does hurt. You sort of just have to relax. And then after they get a couple sucks in and their latch is good, you can go in and fix their latch. And then it doesn't hurt. So for me right now, I would say no, it does not hurt him at all. But you also have to make sure his latch is good, you're taking care of your nipples, all that stuff. Next question is, how do you feed baby until milk starts to come out? Do you need to have formula for feeding? So when we were in the hospital and I didn't have my milk, we did supplement with formula. I fed him the colostrum that I did have and was able to harvest, but that wasn't a lot. So we gave him mostly bottles. And then the first 2 2 nights and like days that we were home, right? That was all bottle feeding, and then my milk came in the next day. And then ever since then, he's been only breastfed exclusively. Next question is, how did I stay calm? I did a ton of research while I was pregnant on everything. So I watched a ton of birth videos, birth vlogs. I followed a bunch of birth doulas on YouTube, watched a bunch of their videos on like breathing and coping with pain, what to expect, different situations that can happen within labor, some of the different choices that you have. I believe that education is power, and it helps you make the most informed decisions calmly. So I think just knowing what could happen and what would most likely happen and how I could use my knowledge to react to the things that happened, that was really helpful. And I felt like I knew everything I could know at that point without actually going through something. And so I was as calm as I could be with the circumstances that were happening to me.
Yeah, quick note from a partner standpoint is if you're not willing to do the research yourself, you have to be willing to be open-minded, and any advice that your partner gives to you, you have to follow it because you didn't do the research. So if you're not willing to sort of watch those videos, or you don't have time to watch those videos, then you need to be humble enough to accept their advice and their guidance, which is what I did. Because on certain days I did have the time to watch the videos, but I didn't want to. And other days I just purely didn't have the time, or she would do it while I was at work. So you have to be open-minded. And then I would just encourage you to take a couple classes, either like birth classes together or like newborn care classes together, because we've done 2 together. And it's just easy for me to understand why she's doing something or why she's so passionate about a certain point when I know the why.
Yeah.
One quick example as to why that's important is during contractions. We've already mentioned that she was having immense pain in sort of her mid to lower back. That's sort of where her contractions were hitting the hardest. And my reaction to that would have been to massage it the best I could during contractions, and the pure and honest truth would have been that would have been more annoying than helpful to Taylor in the moment, because her contractions were so focused and so strong that my touch would have been meant like a minute part of her sensations on her nervous system, and that means I would have been doing more, not more harm, but I wouldn't have been helping.
Yeah.
She would have been more annoyed than satisfied by my attempts to help her. And that came from a birth class that we took together, where the doula or midwife or nurse, I don't remember her title, mentioned that she's going through immense pain. So any sort of touch that you do cannot be light.
Yeah.
You have to let her know that you're there. You have to forcefully, but not hurting her, let her know that like you're there to support her. And in my case, I was putting probably 80% of my body weight into her back in order to push back at the contraction.
And that was like that. I needed that just to get through it. Like I can confidently say like I don't know how I would have gotten through it without him pressing so hard onto my back.
So that's just a minor example of like why going to classes together is important, or simply being open-minded and humble enough to take their advice if you're not willing to do the research.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, next question. What did your contractions feel like / where was the pain from contractions?
I guess I just answered
we
that.
just answered a second. But contractions, what they feel like, it's really hard to explain. I would say like a period cramp, but like times 100. It builds, so it's sort of like a wave. Like you can feel it coming on, and then it builds to the top, and then you can feel it coming back down. The top is really bad. But it comes back down. They only will ever last like about a minute at the max. So you just have to remember that it's not going to last for forever. You're completely normal in between contractions. And it sort of feels like it's wrapping around your entire midsection. So it could either start in your back and wrap around to your front in your pelvic area, or the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to look up the sort of physiology of a contraction would probably help explain it as well.
Yeah.
Because the body is contracting
Right.
every muscle in your abdomen
To move the baby down.
move the baby down. And as you move a full-term baby, which is 7 pounds,
Yeah.
you're pushing a 7-pound weight through a 10-centimeter hole.
Yeah.
And most of the time you're contracting, it's not 10 centimeters.
Right.
So you're pushing a 7-pound weight with a 7-pound, 10-inch weight
Yeah.
at its widest through, trying to push it through a 5-inch hole.
Yep.
And now it's pushing all of your muscles, all of your tissue, all of your organs away as it tries to push it through this hole. That should give you a pretty good idea as to what it feels like.
Yeah.
Just, I guess, grab a wooden rod that's 3 inches round and try and shove it through a 2-inch hole as
Yeah.
hard as you can.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, next question. Next question. How are baby Prince's levels doing, and did Josh ever let you get some sleep? He's doing really well since being home.
To Josh.
This was from Haley,
Oh.
like a school Haley. So yeah, he's doing really well. He's home now. Yeah, he's doing well.
He's doing really well.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
For sleep, Josh gets more sleep than I get. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But he also is very willing to get up out of bed when I need him to get up. And I try to ask as little as possible. But he is very helpful. Very, very helpful.
I'm better at staying up late than I am
Yeah.
at waking up.
Yeah.
So for these first 2 nights, I have taken the late night shift. So he sleeps until there's 2 feedings he has to do, one at 10 and then one somewhere around 12:30 or 1. So I've taken those 2 along with my sister and stayed up for those while Taylor has gone to bed.
Yeah.
So I let her get sort of this initial 3 to 5 hours of sleep. But then once I go to bed at 1, obviously it's going to be a whole lot harder for me to wake up
Yeah.
at 3, 5, 7 in the morning. So I'd say we're pretty split.
Yeah.
Like if you compared our Fitbits
Yeah.
one to another, I don't think
Yeah.
one
That's
is
true.
way ahead of the other.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting more,
Yeah.
but it's not by a large
right,
margin.
not a significant amount more.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Did I tear? How was going to the bathroom afterwards? I did tear. I had a 2nd-degree tear, and a periurethral tear. I forget the word.
I don't know.
But basically, I tore in both directions, which is really rare. It hardly happens to anyone, so lucky me. But it's only 2nd degree, so I guess I can't complain too much because it could be a lot worse.
4 degree is the highest.
4th degree is the worst.
So she's a 2.
Yeah, thank goodness. But basically, I tore my pee hole. So going to the bathroom the first time, after giving birth, before they let me go to the NICU, our nurse wanted me to pee twice before she let me go over there. The first time I tried to pee, I couldn't. She said it was probably just because of the catheter and because I had an epidural. The second time I tried to pee, I could. It was fine. Now I can pee just fine. The first poop, I was terrified of doing, but it was fine. Just let your body push it out and don't push it out. I also didn't have any hemorrhoids, so if that happens to you, it probably...
God
I
be with you.
don't even know.
That's all I say.
Yeah, just take your stool softeners, drink a lot of water, stay hydrated. Don't force your body to poop. You will still be able to feel the urge to go to the bathroom. Just go to the bathroom when your body's telling you to go to the bathroom, and you should be just fine. This question says, congratulations. How long was the labor? I technically, like 19 hours, start to finish.
Yep.
Like, yep.
Next question.
Next question. How did you choose his name? You.
Yeah, I can explain that. August comes from the movie August Rush. It's a great movie with Robin Williams and the actor's name who escapes me. The lead actor from Bates Motel and now plays Sean, Dr. Sean Murphy from The Good Doctor. But he was like a little kid at the time. And it's a great movie about a kid who is an orphan and he's desperately trying to find his parents. It's a very heartfelt movie and definitely one of my top fives. And I love the character, so that's where his name comes from. And then Fox is a family name. Yep, it's a family name on my dad's side.
Yeah.
So my dad gave us the suggestion to use Fox, and one of his cousins actually has the middle name Fox as well. So one of his cousins' names is Archer Fox Anderson, and he will be August Fox Anderson. So
Yeah. Last question. What was similar to what you expected and what things were totally different? So I was expecting contractions to hurt. I was expecting pushing the baby out to hurt. Contractions hurt a lot. I was not expecting to obviously having to deal with them for as long as I could. I think if you do all the math between like me having the epidural, me contracting, the epidural wearing off or just not working, and me feeling contractions, that was like 11 hours of me contracting.
without an
epidural, which was absolutely exhausting. I was not expecting to be that tired within labor, like falling asleep while in labor. But that's insane. But pushing out the actual baby was honestly the easiest part compared to everything else. Like that
It was like a big ab
the easiest
workout,
part.
right?
Yeah.
Pushing the baby out.
So I definitely think
You were also full-fledged epidural at that point.
yeah, that's true. My epidural was very much kicked in, and I kept pressing the button for more dosage before I pushed him out, just to make sure it wouldn't wear off again.
Mid-labor.
Yeah. But going along with that, I definitely think me being active all throughout my pregnancy and before my pregnancy helped me being able to push him out relatively quickly, since most moms take like 2 hours to push out a kid, and it took me like 45 minutes. But yeah, do your squats, have a strong core, try and keep your endurance levels up as high as you can while you're pregnant, and things should go better than if you don't do those things. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. So thank you to everyone who gave some questions on Instagram. We really appreciate that. That's definitely the easiest way to reach out. If you have more questions on things that we didn't cover today, please feel free to DM either Taylor or myself.
Going along with that, after giving birth, I feel like I don't even know what like boundaries are or like openness levels. So if you actually have a question that's like you feel is too much information to ask one person, you can ask me and I will probably have an answer for you. So that's it.
Don't hold back. So again, Taylor is Gus. Stop. So again, Taylor is on Instagram at Tays Best Days, TaysBestDays, no spaces. And I am at Whimsical Joshua, also no spaces, 2 words together. We are on every social media at Young Love PC, so that is Facebook and Instagram. We do have a Twitter. I will no longer be using it, so don't go there. Just because it's too many things to handle. So Facebook or Instagram, because I'll get the notifications for those, and then I can respond. And we'll address your questions on the next episode before we start. As always, you can leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/younglove, and you just click the little plus button. They're a minute long, so make sure you get your question in quick. Include your name, so so that we can have you on the podcast. We'll include your voice message when we can. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to bringing you guys more episodes on a more regular basis now that my grad school semester is over and the kid is here, and we grow and learn and share our experiences with you. That's all I got.
Yeah. Oh no, we should end it
What?
with the jingle.
Oh, we made a jingle from Taylor's experiences.
Yeah.
And,
While after I delivered the baby,
Yeah.
I hurt a lot. I
and
was in
neither of us
pain.
are professional musicians, so
Yeah.
don't judge us. But this is the jingle. Ready? 3, 2, 1. My vagina, my vagina hurts, my vagina. Yep, that was the jingle.
Yep, there it is.
That was postpartum.
Yep, we
Jingle.
were also very tired,
Yes.
but we thought it was very funny
tired.
and very accurate.
So with that, Gem, we will see you guys, hear from you guys. You will hear